Good evening and welcome to BATV News. I'm Kenil Gale. The social and political unrest in Venezuela was high on the agenda when U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson met with Prime Minister Andrew Holness today to discuss bilateral and regional issues. Secretary Tillerson's visit was part of a regional trip in which he visited 5 countries in 7 days. Jamaica was his final stop before heading back to Washington, D.C. Andrew Laidley reports.
It's the first visit of any U.S. official since the election of Donald Trump as President of the United States in 2016. And according to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, a myriad of issues were discussed. Chief among them were the crisis in Venezuela and Jamaica's oil relations with that country.
We now don't currently import oil from Venezuela. With the new dynamics in the global trade in energy, and with the United States now becoming a net exporter of energy resources, Jamaica can, in this new paradigm, benefit from that.
But just how much thought is the U.S. government really giving to Caribbean islands like Jamaica, who've benefited considerably from highly subsidized Venezuelan oil?
As to any future steps that the U.S. might take regarding sanctioning oil or products to put more pressure on the Maduro regime, we are going to take into full consideration the impacts on regional countries as well. And we had a good exchange today regarding that issue, not just for Jamaica, but also getting the Prime Minister's perspective on other countries, how they might be affected.
The U.S. Secretary of State says while there is no definitive answer just yet as to how the U.S. will help Jamaica if Jamaica pulls out of a deal with Venezuela, he says the U.S. is going to do its best to ensure that Jamaica is assisted in some way.
And we will be looking at what are actions the U.S. might take to mitigate the negative impacts of that. So I don't want to get into specifics because we're going to undertake a very quick study to see are there some things that the U.S. could easily do with our rich energy endowment, with the infrastructure that we already have available. What could we do to perhaps soften the impact of that?
In the meantime, Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley says the government is moving ahead with its plan to buy Venezuela's 49% stake in the Petrojam refinery. The buyout is estimated to cost some $80 million. But Dr. Wheatley says that money has been accounted for in the upcoming budget.
We indicated to the Venezuelan government our intention to repurchase the shares, the 49% stake that they have in the refinery. Just 2 Fridays ago, I wrote the new Minister of Energy indicating same, and the government of Jamaica has made the necessary allocation within this year's budget to pay for the shares. We are currently finalizing the valuation, the more up-to-date valuation. A valuation was done summer of last year, and current valuation should be in my hand come the end of this week.
For BATV News, I'm Andrew Laidley.
Meanwhile, with increasing opposition to the Venezuelan government, Jamaica is now being forced to explore other options of fulfilling the island's oil needs. Energy Minister Dr. Andrew Wheatley says so far the country has done well in sourcing alternative markets for oil, but turning to the U.S. for help is still on the cards. Here's more. Where's the oil coming from? That's the question on everybody's mind as the Petrocarib deal with Venezuela nears its end. The last time Jamaica received oil from Venezuela was May of last year. Since then, the government has been forced to find creative ways to buy oil.
From an energy security perspective, we are in a good position in terms of being able to purchase fuel, whether refined products or crude, from Trinidad or from the Gulf of Mexico or on the spot market.
Dr. Wheatley says the effects of pulling out of the Petrocarib deal will hardly be felt as the price of oil still isn't high enough to make Petrocarib worthwhile for Jamaica.
One needs to appreciate how the Petrocarib arrangement operates. The Petrocarib operates really the benefits come into being once the price of oil is above a certain number. I think it's 70 or 75 US dollars per barrel. The current price is around 60 or 50 dollars per barrel, $50 per barrel. And as such, the special benefits that we get from the Petrocarib agreement does not come into play. Even if we were taking petroleum products from Venezuela.
Meanwhile, as the government looks to the U.S. for assistance, the issue of Petrojam's correspondent banking problem looms. However, Dr. Wheatley says that is being dealt with.
We have been working with the U.S. State Department and Treasury Department as relates to that matter. It is quite clear that the executive order, the effects that we were experiencing, was an unintended consequence. Notwithstanding that, we have been working through the issues and we are dealing aggressively with those matters.
He says Petrojam has so far been able to do transactions with the support of the U.S. Treasury.
We have been able to get through our transactions as a result of the support of the U.S. State Department and Treasury.
The Caribbean Development Bank, CDB, says a projected increase in growth in Jamaica is expected to lead the way for regional growth this year. CDB officials say they're very confident about the country's growth prospects. Clelia Reynolds is in Barbados, where the bank held its annual press conference today.
According to the CDB, average growth for the region is projected at 2% for 2018. Jamaica's projected growth is slightly higher at 2.3%, and that's expected to help turn things around for a region that suffered a very tough 2017.
We anticipate that the economies of all BMCs will grow in 2018. We expect the regional economy to grow by 2% compared with the 0.6% in 2017. This will be driven mainly by the return to growth in Trinidad and Tobago and a 2.3% uptick in Jamaica, which accounts for about a fifth of regional GDP.
CDB President Dr. Warren Smith says the Caribbean is on track to have its best year since the global recession.
The region is in the strongest position since the start of the 2008 global recession, which set in motion an extended downward spiral in economic performance. At the same time, I am also mindful that our economic growth continues to lag behind that of our comparators.
Indeed, 2% growth isn't anything to brag about, but coming off barely 0.5% in 2017, it's an encouraging turnaround. Dr. Ram says he's very confident in Jamaica despite the island's continued missed targets.
I'm actually very confident that Jamaica should achieve this growth rate this year. Of course, there are risks out there which can have a negative impact on this, particularly as it relates to environmental risks. But let me just say that over the last 5 years or so, the Jamaican government and the Jamaican people have reformed significantly, that now is the time that we expect to see the fruits of those reforms.
So the message from the CDB for both Jamaica and the region is one of confidence, despite a devastating year for many countries in 2017. I'm Kalila Reynolds reporting for BATV News from CDB headquarters in Barbados.
Still to come, Andrew Holness tells CARICOM to get its act together or else Jamaica is leaving. The details after the break. Welcome back. Free movement of people, removal of trade tariffs, and job creation. Those are some of the recommendations from the Bruce Golding-led CARICOM Review Commission. The commission was established to evaluate Jamaica's CARICOM membership in terms of economic growth and development, investment, international competitiveness, and job creation. Jamila Maitland reports.
After consultations with numerous groups, the CARICOM Review Commission, led by former Prime Minister Bruce Golding, made 33 recommendations. The Commission hopes these recommendations will help Jamaica benefit more from CARICOM and the Caribbean Single Market Economy, CSME. Among the recommendations are full free movement of people through CARICOM, only to be withheld for security and public health concerns, the harmonizations of laws and regulations relating to financial services and custom laws, as well as regulations and procedures for trading goods and services. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the review was not intended to seek an exit from CARICOM or the CSME, but to review the structure, procedures, and practices that have not worked effectively for Jamaica nor the wider Caribbean. Meanwhile, the report pointed to commitment from CARICOM member states to ensure a functioning CSME by 2023. But if this doesn't happen, Prime Minister Holness says Jamaica will have no choice but to question its participation in the CSME. In the meantime, the Prime Minister said he's looking forward to discussing the report with other regional heads of government and the CARICOM Secretariat. For BATV News, I'm Jamila Maitland.
Meanwhile, debate on the bill to amend the Banking Services Act was postponed yet again yesterday in Parliament. The postponement triggered a shouting match between members, with opposition MP Fitz Jackson accusing the government of railroading the debate. The outbursts which ensued forced a vote to suspend the debate on the bill until further notice. 31 members voted in favor, while 20 voted against. The amendment seeks to address and regulate the fees charged by deposit-taking institutions under the Banking Services Act. Fitz Jackson, who's championed the bill, argued that it has been in Parliament since 2016 and is a debate which needs to happen. The debate will be placed on the agenda for the next parliamentary sitting. And Parliament passed the new Traffic Act yesterday. The new law, which replaces the 1938 Road Traffic Act, establishes new offences and sees increased penalties for some offences. Motorists who drive without the required motor vehicle insurance coverage will be fined $20,000, while driving a motor vehicle without being the holder of a permit or driver's license will see you being slapped with a $40,000 fine. Failure to stop at pedestrian crossings will cost you $12,000, while making loud noises within silent zones or failure to wear a protective helmet will come with a $5,000 fine. Transport Minister Mike Henry, who piloted the bill, says the amendments are intended to reduce injuries and loss of life on the nation's roads. He says the ministry will host an island-wide public education campaign about the new Road Traffic Act. And stay with us, regional and international stories after the break. Welcome back. Time now for regional and international stories. Tobago House of Assembly Minority Leader Watson Duke says he's concerned about crime in Tobago. That is why he wants a local police service for the island, similar to the municipal police in Trinidad. More from CNC's Patricia Nicholson.
Minority Leader Watson Duke says, based on statistics from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, there were 13 murders in Tobago for 2017 and not 12 as reported in the media.
Contrary to popular belief, the amount of deaths, murders in Tobago last year was not 12, but 13. I have the figures right here from Trinidad and Tobago Police statistics. Here it is. It's right here. It is not 12, but 13. One person died by murder and was not reported in the public.
He says other data provided leaves him with the view that Tobago needs a local police service. It's a recommendation which was made before by former Chief Secretary Orville London.
It is with sadness I report that the amount of serious crime in Tobago in 2017 amounted to 950, a rocket high. Wounded and shooting, it was 38. Only 14 was detected.
Mr. Duke says the statistics also suggest that the detection rate in Tobago is low.
The police service of Trinidad and Tobago could only do so much to assist in crime. And I'm calling upon the Tobago House of Assembly to meet with the minority leader and let us together, jointly, support a local police service for Tobago. Something that mimics the municipal police in Trinidad, the city police, something that mimics the LA police, New York police. These are local police.
Tobago has already recorded 2 murders for 2018. Divisional Commander Joan Archie at the scene of the last murder said investigations were ongoing into both incidents. I'm Patricia Nicholson for C News.
Brazil's Supreme Court has authorized the privatization of the giant state-owned electric company Eletrobras. The move came as the government sends out mixed signals about the future of hydroelectric dam projects, particularly on the Amazon River. Al Jazeera's Lucia Newman reports.
This is the Tapajós River. Its crystal clear waters end where it joins the murkier Amazon River in Santarém. From this port city, tons of Brazilian soybeans are shipped out each day. But on this day, it's not the increasing deforestation of the Amazon for soy and cattle grazing that's brought environmental activists here.
The Mining and Energy Ministry has posted plans for 7 large hydroelectric dams in the Amazon, 2 along this river.
Hydro energy is Brazil's main source of electricity, and before year's end, the government is set to privatize Eletrobras, Latin America's largest power company, inviting foreign investors to play a major role in expansion efforts. Local priest Ediberto Sena takes us to an indigenous community along the Tapajós River. Hipólito Silva and his wife Maria live from what nature gives them. Nothing goes to waste. Not even the feathers from tropical birds for their headdresses, nor snakes' backbones used for making this necklace.
The dams will destroy the river. It will destroy nature. What will happen to the trees that produce fruit for the fish to eat? We will suffer the consequences.
Energy experts see the Tapajós not only as the next frontier in hydroelectric production, but also as an example of so-called multiple water usage. Local communities and conservationists believe that the end game is to turn the Tapajós River, into an aquatic superhighway. This would significantly reduce the time and the cost of shipping Brazil's #1 cash crop, soy, to this country's #1 market, China. But to do that, dams would have to be built upriver in order to raise the water levels enough to allow large ships to sail through. In fact, the CEO of Brazil's Energy Research Office applauds the idea and dismisses recent reports that the era of large hydroelectric power plants is over. But he says future projects can no longer ignore social and environmental concerns.
Those projects should be done following an inclusive way so that everybody can be on the table and the benefits can be properly shared.
But in the Amazon, where critics say there's no such thing as a harmless dam, communities like this one are already preparing to resist as best they can. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Santarém, Brazil.
In Germany, the Social Democrats originally said they would not prop up another government under Chancellor Angela Merkel, but they have now agreed that they will go into another coalition with the Conservatives if party members approve. The Social Democrats would keep control of the Foreign Ministry and take over the post of Finance Minister if the coalition forms. Al Jazeera's Paul Brennan reports from Berlin.
The negotiating teams emerged blinking into the bright Berlin sunlight, clearly relieved it was all over. 3 days after the supposed deadline for agreement, it had taken a marathon 24-hour session to finally seal the deal. It was mid-afternoon by the time the party leaders felt ready to speak.
Ich weiß, dass Millionen I know that millions of Germans have been watching us very closely over recent weeks. They had two justified demands of us. Firstly, please form a government at long last, and a stable one. And second, think of people's real needs and interests. I'm convinced that the coalition agreement we've come up with together can do precisely that.
I
think that what we've managed to achieve really does bear the stamp of the Social Democrats. The agreement's been heavily influenced by us, and we're grateful we've been able to achieve some concessions that were difficult for the Conservatives.
For the past 5 weeks, Germany's centre-right CDU and centre-left SPD have been locked in negotiations over a common position on issues including healthcare, labour reform, immigration and housing policy. Allocating ministerial positions involved more compromise. But with a deal now done, those compromises have been bitterly criticised by the right-wing AfD party.
The assignment of the ministry shows that the CDU has totally surrendered, out of fear of the SPD members. The CDU has given up its ideology, and now it's giving up in practical terms too, because it has none of the main ministries anymore. The CDU is just an empty shell.
There is one last hurdle to clear, though, before the new Grand Coalition government can be confirmed. SPD members now get their vote on the deal, and their sentiment appears evenly split. Kevin Kühnert, the leader of the SPD Young Socialist group, Jusos, has been organising a strong youth campaign against another so-called GroKo.
The question might be, though, whether his appeal, and especially his voting strata he's representing, carries enough weight to convince the older members, which are probably more inclined to be persuaded by the older board, which is going to rally in favor of joining the Grand Coalition.
The SPD postal vote will take about 2 weeks to produce a result. The coalition is not a done deal yet. Paul Brennan, Al Jazeera, Berlin.
Talking Stocks is after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for Talking Stocks. 52 stocks traded today, of which 19 advanced, 24 declined, and 9 traded firm. The main JSE index declined by 6,039 points to close at 286,272 points. The junior index declined by 41.5 points to close at 2,926 points. Over 12 million units traded today, valued at more than $164 million on the Jamaican dollar market, and on the US dollar market, over 538,000 units traded, valued at $125,000 US dollars. Sagicor Real Estate X Fund, with over 3 million units changing hands, accounted for 25.3% of the market volume. GWest Corporation was second, with over 2.6 million units trading, amounting to 20.5%. Panjam Investments accounted for 1.5 million units, amounting to 11.64% of market volume crossing the floor. Jamaica Producers was the top advancer, up $5.23 to close at $15.90, followed by Dolphin Cove, up $3.79 to close at $17, and Caribbean Cream, up $3.64 to close at $5.70. The main decliners were T-Tech Limited, going down $8.33 to close at $5.50, followed by Sterling Investments losing $7.23 to close at $9.63, and Barito Investments down $6.13 to close at $7.51. In foreign exchange trading, the Jamaican dollar lost ground on the US and British pound today, but gained on the Canadian dollar. The US ended the day selling for $125.89, gaining 19 cents on the Jamaican dollar. The Canadian lost 51 cents to sell for $99.49, while the British pound went for $175.34, gaining $1.21 on the Jamaican. And that's the news, but before we go, a recap of our top story. U.S. promises to help Jamaica source affordable oil as the island severs Petro-Carib ties. Thanks for watching. For more content, visit our website at batvja.com. I'm Kenil Gale. Pleasant viewing. Jamelia girl.